Well, if you're operating in a market, you can't do that. All you can do is put up your billboards and your advertisements and wait for people to sign up. If they sign up, then you have to go and survey the rooftop and see if the roof's pointed the right way, if the roof's going to fall down the next 20 years. Look at the tariff, what tariff the customer's under to determine the rate of payback on the investment. And then you have to make a decision as to whether it's a good location, advisable location. In a rollout, it's quite different. The roofs of your city are simply a platform for infrastructure, period. The city can acquire that rooftop. It can lease it from you. It's obviously the option of the owner of the building whether they want to volunteer the rooftop. But no longer are you required to sell a product to that rooftop owner. The sort of thinning down or the narrowing of the opportunity through a market approach is quite shocking if you think about it. In wireless, the wireless industry, we brought in some people from wireless because wireless companies acquire rooftops. That's how they build networks. They go around, they send real estate cowboys around, and engineers, and the engineers say, well, I'd like to have that roof and that roof and that roof. In order to design and software programs design cells that overlap so you have coverage. And then they go and they identify the owner of the building at the county plat maps, and then they go and call them up and negotiate a deal. They give them free phones, and they give them $1,000 a month or whatever the market bears for that rooftop. It's real estate. It's not a customer to sell a phone to. It's an unrelated problem. It's infrastructure. And so it really is a totally different kind of paradigm for how to do it, not merely a different financing vehicle, but physically different. And once you get to back to the carbon level, 50,000 feet, in order to reduce carbon, you've got to reduce load at the substation. You've got to physically decongest the grid. Grids are magnetic fields. And if a random spread pattern of photovoltaics, if you just randomly place solar around your community, you'll find that the carbon impact, the load impact of the substation is very unpredictable. Why? Because high congestion areas in the microgrid where there's very little room for capacity will take power back at a very different rate from low congestion areas in the microgrid. In other words, the location of local power is really the appropriate sort of engineering level. The choice of a location is largely determined by conditions of the grid at that location, not by whether someone in the house happens to want solar panels. From a design perspective, it's essential to be able to see the grid as a city, to see the city as an organism that consumes energy, and to target areas of the grid with appropriate technology in order for those technologies to be cost effective at the system level, in order for those technologies to actually result in a phasing down of conventional power plant capacity. If you simply install solar panels without considering those impacts, then you have a symbolic gesture, which is very positive, but you haven't actually reduced the carbon footprint of your community. And so that the idea of a public design entity is something we really promote as a company, that it's the appropriate role of the city as the entity that understands what is in their city, who are the big energy users. And one of the things we got from regulators in California was full access to utility data. It was tough to get it, but we got it, and you need to get it in Ohio, as there are a few things that need to be done in Ohio to fully do this, but you can start now, and there are things you can do now. But that ability to see the city as an organism and really redesign energy systems to adapt them to the energy uses in the city, as well as adapting to local renewable resources. What have you got? What transmission have you got? How much wind have you got? How much solar have you got? What resources do you have here? And it's a matching of the load conditions to supply conditions to actually get carbon out of the system physically. Next slide, please, Gary. So, it takes time. And doing things first always takes particularly lots of time. And San Francisco, you can see, it's 2001 was the first major action, and we really had continuous effort to get the financing authority, to get an ordinance that combined the financing authority with the procurement authority, 2004, and then last summer, after 2.5 years, the city adopted an implementation plan. Just last week, my company was awarded a contract to write the contract documents and negotiate this deal with energy suppliers, which we will do over the next 6 months. Next slide, please. The benefit, however, of this approach is that it delivers nonlinear change. It's not simply a market where you're setting a target and putting in a few systems. Rather, the city will issue around $1 billion in bonds over the next few years, and after that, another billion or $2 billion to finish the job. The city will achieve a 51% renewable portfolio standard in less than 10 years. Now, a lot of you, I'm sure the more informed activists among you will naturally think, that can't be possible. You can't. To have, you see the bottom there, the supplier must, to procure grid power and design, build, operate, and maintain the new facilities, and must meet or beat the utilities rates, PG&E, our Northern California utility.
Paul, you want to explain to people what a renewable portfolio standard is?
Oh, I'm sorry. The renewable portfolio standard is simply a percentage of energy generated on behalf of the community by a certain year. And currently, Ohio's just adopted a 25% standard that includes half non-renewable resources, clean coal, innovative technology. So really a 12.5% renewable portfolio standard by 2025, which is it's a good first step. California has a 20% renewable portfolio standard by 2017. That's the law under which the utilities are currently non-compliant. They're not complying with that schedule. San Francisco will jump to 51% renewable on the same schedule. Sounds impossible. Can we go to the next slide? But it has replicated itself virally. You have not just San Francisco, but Marin County to the north has a 50% renewable portfolio standard by the same year. Oakland is in Emeryville and East Bay, the same amount. Virtually all of the cities in California that are implementing community choice are setting these extremely high renewable portfolio standards. We are designing the portfolios for several of them, and we put them forward, showed the economics. You go to the next slide, please, Gary. And this is an example of the most ambitious RPS in California. We designed this one, and so I understand the laughter. It is 66% renewable portfolio standard by 2017 at the same rates that are currently being charged customers in that jurisdiction, okay? That causes a 60% carbon reduction. The rate is, if you see in row 40, the fourth column from the right, that's the cost of power from that portfolio. 8.5 cents. Go to the next slide, please. So here's I don't know what happened there. I guess I have an Apple computer, and this appears to have eliminated one of the slides, but this is the more important one here. This is the portfolio, and you'll see that red part, slice of the pie there, is geothermal. Sonoma has a magnificent geothermal resource. It's virtually a huge volcano, and it's underutilized. There is virtually no geothermal heating right now in Sonoma, and so Pacific Gas and Electric, which is a gas and electric company, has neglected a world-class technology replacement of its gas business, and the radical opportunity in Sonoma is geothermal heat. The county can be heated entirely by geothermal. Any home can be heated by geothermal. All you have to do is drill down about 100 feet and you get 100-degree water. It's very cheap, and it enables the jurisdiction to cross over into gas, not merely electricity. And electricity can also be generated from geothermal